It's football and other F words on 104.5 The Zone. Who would have thought that a podcast started talking about fantasy football and then went into a garage and then a basement and turned into a Titans football show where we got drunk and talked and talked and talked and talked. And that's just one episode. And here we are. 104.5 The Zone, football and other F words. We're on Twitch. This is the first time we're on Twitch, but we're also on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Zone TV, FNM Bank Chat. I don't know if I still have to say FNM Bank Chat, but hey, free shout out for FNM Bank Chat. There you go.
Yeah.
We got the chat going and everything. This will be. I think all the videos are working and the audio is fine. That sounded a little sketchy for whatever reason now, but we're just gonna have to roll with the punches. It's gonna be kind of learning on the fly, episode by episode until we get done. In today's episode I am joined by Stony Keeley at Stony Keeley, and then Mike Herndon at Mike Herndon NFL on Twitter. Guys, it's kind of big time. I don't know how many people are going to be watching this late at night. We're 30 minutes later because I accidentally scheduled this during a soccer show that Lucas and Will were doing. And then I just screwed everything up. So for them, here we go. It's
so
just
American football of us to just nuke a soccer show and for no reason. Yeah.
Well, we got a lot to talk about. We got preseason finale coming up, dress rehearsals. We got silly Twitter takes to get to. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about. I just want to start off, Mike. What are you doing? Because now you got Buck screaming the same rhetoric, using the same kind of language that you were doing. Caleb Murphy's not making this team. He can't even go out there because he cut his hand. He's got a little boo-boo.
Well, my only question is, would you rather have Caleb Murphy or Rashad Weaver? I think Rashad Weaver, it's more of a Rashad Weaver take than it is a Caleb Murphy take. But give me the guy that has shown something in preseason. They're playing the same bums, and one of them's producing, one of them's not. So I don't know. I'm done. With
Rashad Weaver's doing a little bit more stuff than Caleb Murphy is. Caleb Murphy's, not very good in coverage, and Rashad Weaver is not very good at coverage, but at least better than Caleb Murphy. He's been better at stopping the run than Caleb Murphy. All Caleb Murphy could do is run fast. And that's not enough on this team to keep him.
Much better pass rusher than Rashad Weaver is.
Because he runs fast. I mean, that's all it is. Like, you cannot keep a guy that is a one-trick pony.
It's not even running fast. It's technique. It's his ability.
It is not. Come on, you're getting crazy.
He's not even that great an athlete. He's not like
you are the same people that we talked to. You are the same guy from last year. You are those people. Like those people last year who tried to tell me Caleb Murphy's really good. He's going to make an impact for this team. He had 36 sacks at Fenner State, University College Amusement Park. He's got it all. Like, come on. He's not making this team over Rashad Weaver. Does that mean that Rashad Weaver's good? No.
He should make it over Rashad Weaver. I think this is how bad the edge situation is for the Titans. I don't think Caleb Murphy belongs on a 53-man roster in the NFL, but I don't think Rashad Weaver does either. And so one of them's going to make it unless you're a Thomas Rush fan.
You are.
I mean, the luster's come off my boy Tommy Rush a little bit. But it's to me, like I know what Weaver is, and it's not adequate. It's not adequate to play in NFL games. He's just not good. We've seen him. This is his fourth year. He still isn't doing anything against bums in preseason. He cannot get off blocks. Cannot. He is incapable of playing in coverage because he can't move. And it's the same reason he's not good in run defense, because he can't move laterally. He has no lateral quickness. And I'm not saying Caleb Murphy is great at all that, but I do know that he can rush the passer a little bit.
But we've seen Rashad Weaver actually rush the passer during a game
against the guy. Just a bum.
We have seen Rashad Weaver in regular season rush the passer, have we not?
Well, he had 4 sacks in like 5 games for one.
Yeah, and you love those 4 sacks. You were glowing about Rashad Weaver during that
5.5 sacks in like 50-something games. Come on.
But here we're going to expect Caleb Murphy, who now is the 5th edge guy. I mean, let's be honest. He's the 5th edge guy.
Well, let's see.
And Rashad Weaver is probably still the 3rd edge guy. I don't think he should be, but he probably is the 3rd edge guy.
Rushing against the same bums in preseason, Caleb Murphy has 5 pressures. Rashad Weaver has 2. Last year, if we want to go back, Caleb Murphy
that's a huge difference, by the way.
Yeah, it's more than double.
Remember
in the
all those
same amount of
pressures that Caleb
snaps.
Murphy had last year, and man, he sure was awesome last year.
Yeah, Caleb Murphy 7 pressures, Rashad Weaver 3 last year. Again, more than double in a roughly equivalent amount of pass rush snaps. Weaver shows nothing ever. He never shows anything. I'm done with him. It's beyond time for him to move on.
He helped make a chance. He helped make a couple plays on this preseason game where he allowed other people to go make the play.
Come on now.
Well, he did.
Excuse making for Rashad Weaver.
No, that is just the truth.
He made a couple plays for other guys. He's put them in the Hall of Fame.
I mean, I'd rather have a guy that can do that and be dependable and has played actual NFL games. I mean, there's more than just rushing the passer, and unfortunately, the edge rusher is going to have to do that.
Weaver's not good at any of it.
He's better than Caleb Murphy at the other stuff.
No, I don't think so. They're equivalent.
Well, it's just facts. I mean, I know you don't like facts or anything, but it's just facts. No, I concede that Caleb Murphy.
Facts.
I concede that Caleb Murphy is the better pass rusher. Maybe. We'd never have seen it in a regular season game. But Rashad Weaver is better at everything else than Caleb Murphy, and that's just a fact.
Based on what?
Based on what we have seen. We have seen Caleb Murphy miss tackles, not do well in the run game, not do well in coverage.
We've seen Rashad Weaver do all that shit.
But it's like arguing between, for me, like Jalen Duncan and John Ojukwu. They're both bad, but one of them is better, and that one is Rashad Weaver.
Before 4 years into the Rashad Weaver thing, be done with it. We know what he is.
They can't afford to be done with it because they have what they can do is roll 3 edges.
No, you can.
They can play Caleb Murphy. You can't play Caleb Murphy.
They need to claim an edge off of waivers. Ultimately.
I agree. I think we all agree on that.
But if you're asking me who I'd rather have Caleb Murphy because of the
mysterious upside, that elusive upside.
Okay. I'd rather have bad with upside than bad with no upside. We know what.
But they're both bad. And you take the less bad, you take the lesser of two evils.
He's not less bad.
That's what the Bible has taught us.
He's just
not the lesser of two evils.
He's just not.
And you're not wanting to take the lesser of two evils. And that's sinning. That's
Weaver stinks.
Brandon, we need to get you to church. All right. Stoney, where do you land on all this after we have, lambasted everybody's eardrums about Rashad Weaver and Caleb Murphy in August?
Yeah, I feel like the little brother here that like big brother just mouthed off to dad and now dad's lecturing him in front of everybody. And I'm just sitting here awkwardly watching big brother take it, kind of deal. Listen, Mike Herndon, one of the smartest names in Titans media. All right. I'm not going to dispute that, but this is 2 years now that Mike Herndon feels almost singularly responsible for the Caleb Murphy hype train getting out of control. And I just think we need to hold Mike accountable for that. I mean,
I was not big on Murphy last year, though.
Oh, you were.
I was not.
This is what you said. He would not clear waivers if the Titans cut him last year. They have to keep him on the roster because he would not clear waivers.
I thought there was a chance that he wouldn't, and they did keep him on the roster. So
yeah, he would have cleared waivers. By the way,
maybe. I mean, we're living in a hypothetical world now.
Yeah.
So I think it's possible.
You did that.
I think it's possible that the third edge is not even on this team right now. If you're going to put a gun to my head and we're only talking Weaver and Murphy, I'm going to take Weaver. And I see a little more of a pass rush toolkit from Weaver. He had a nice spin move. He had a nice long arm on Saturday night. Caleb Murphy seems to have speed to power, and it's effective against fourth stringers, but that's about it. And I see Murphy as a sort of developmental practice squad type of guy. I have no issue with keeping him on the roster or letting him hang around the organization, developing a more robust pass rush toolkit. But I think they need somebody within the context of this team in 2024. I think they need somebody that has a higher floor And I just think Weaver's floor is a little bit higher than Caleb Murphy right now.
I'd like to change my answer. Give me the gun to my head. I'll take the gun to the head.
Okay.
Over either
You're
of these
just gonna
options.
over both of them?
Just pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Pull the trigger.
I didn't know there was an option 3. We're here now.
I will say, to what Mike is cooking up here, I do find it pretty telling how late into the fourth quarter Rashad Weaver was out there actually playing on Saturday night. And it kind of makes me wonder if maybe he's a little closer to the bubble than we're thinking right now, just because they need some help at edge. I don't know. Like I said, maybe that third guy, Jalen Harrell's not quite ready to fill that role, but maybe that third guy is not on the roster right now.
Well, Thomas Rush only played like 6 snaps or something, four total snaps, which just seems really odd. That seems like a guy they've decided is not going to make the team.
Maybe
I would say so.
It's interesting because if they're going to continue to play their outside linebackers the way that they are, I just don't think you can have Weaver on that as part of this rotation. I mean, he cannot move. If you're going to play these guys off the ball and do all the blitzing and stunting and stuff like that they're trying to do, with obviously Landry's going to be great at that. Like that perfectly fits his skill set. But Weaver is not that guy. And I just think you've got to find somebody who has a little bit more athleticism. Harrell's a great fit for what they're trying to do. I mean, like schematically, great fit. Like really, really fits this scheme, and you're seeing it pay off already. They need to find more guys like that, and Weaver is not that. So whether it's Murphy, who to me is just like the stand-in for the other option right now, but
I view Weaver.
It's got to be someone else. It can't be Weaver. He does not need to be on this team.
I think the issue is like, do you really trust Jalen Harrell that much? Like, I think that's the
trust him
other
more than I
thing.
trust
There's
Weaver.
something to having NFL experience under your belt, and this edge. They put themselves in this situation. Like we've talked about, this is a precarious situation at edge, and it's not going to really get better through the waiver wire. Like it's really not. It's really not going to get better. But it's like, I know Jalen Harrell, and I'm a big Jalen Harrell guy. I love Jalen Harrell, but he is a 7th round rookie. He is doing all this in the preseason. And listen, the other two really aren't doing what Jalen Harrell's doing. So I think that there is something to that. But at the end of the day, you just got to worry a little bit about Jalen Harrell being the third guy. And I know that Shane Ray's floating around, but like, come on.
I forgot he was even on this team.
You're right.
I mean,
like it's a bad situation, and I would have to say, like, whoever is the guy that is not Jalen Harrell, Arden Key, and Harold Landry, and maybe it is Rashad Weaver gets cut, and we're arguing over Rashad Weaver and Caleb Murphy, when really it's going to be Shane Ray who outs Rashad Weaver and Caleb Murphy out of here. That guy, whoever that is, there either needs to be, he's just there until they sign the other guy, like you said. Like, I think the only 3 guys that they have on this roster that I feel comfortable playing snaps at edge are Harold Landry and Arden Key and the 7th round rookie. The other guys are just nameless faces at this point.
Can they teach Chance Campbell how to play edge? Just slide him out
might
there?
As well. I mean, he's getting more pressures than most of these guys.
Just
I'll be
saying.
honest. I'd be kind of intrigued by James Williams playing outside. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
That dude has some long arms. He could play out there, I think, maybe a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, Chance Campbell is second on the team in pressures with 4. So, hey, maybe you should just put him out there. And this is just it's a tough situation that they put themselves in, and it's not going to get any better. It's not going to get solved unless they trade for like Hassan Reddick, which again, is highly improbable that they're going to trade for Hassan Reddick. At the end of the day, we solved nothing from this discussion other than we have outed Mike as Caleb Murphy, and we're a Caleb Murphy president of his fan club, and we are going to hold you accountable for everything that you say about Caleb Murphy.
Well, Rashad Weaver is for sure blocking me on Twitter after this. So
yeah, for sure.
You're going to run out of players to follow on Twitter.
Rashad Weaver's on a flight to Texas right now. So.
he's coming for you. He's coming for that ass.
Good luck. His stiff ass couldn't catch me.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I tell you what, this hat situation has got to get settled, Stoney.
Yeah, people in the comments. They keep asking me about the hat, and I got it as a
Great.
Christmas gift. And the answer I got, I reached out to my cousin. I said, "Where did you guys get this hat for me for Christmas?" And the answer I got was, "Wait, am I allowed to say this on 104.5 The Zone? Is this technically free advertising?" There's new rules.
You put it on your Twitter. That's what we will direct everybody to your Twitter. And every day that you are wearing that hat on a live stream, you need to tweet out, "Hey, I'm gonna wear this hat today. Here's where I
Gotcha.
got it."
Gotcha. I like that plan. Did you see that live radio producing right
There you
there?
go.
Pro-
right there.
pro
That's
move.
professional. Okay, this preseason game, the O-line depth is a major concern. And we kind of talked
Yes.
about early in the offseason, on paper, the O-line depth looked pretty good. Well, in action, these tackles that they brought in, that Bill Callahan, maybe it's something in the water, like maybe, here in Nashville, that causes these guys to lose strength. But not even Bill Callahan is making Leroy Watson and Jerron Christian look good. They were getting beat like drums by some second and third stringers, and they weren't even the first group in, and they were getting beat like drums. When Brian Dooley looks like the best tackle in a preseason game by a wide margin, we're in for a world of hurt, fellas.
Yeah.
I'll start with you, Stoney, since me and Mike bloviated the most last time.
All right.
How concerned are you about this tackle depth if JC Latham or NPF go down? Because I'm just petrified.
I'm incredibly concerned. I think we qualify what we're thinking about the offensive line in terms of interior and tackles. The interior, I'm actually feeling really good about the depth right there. I think Latavius Simmons has been quietly one of the more steady offensive linemen through the 2 preseason games. I think Andrew Rupchich has flashed as well. And then Cole Spencer might be my MVP of the unit for the entire preseason. So I'm feeling really good there. And then at center, being 3 deep between Lloyd Cushenberry and then Daniel Brunskill and Corey Levin, veteran presence there. I think you're good. You're set at center. But it is an outright disaster beyond JC Latham and NPF right now. That things just don't seem to be clicking for this tackle group. And whatever happened with John Ojukwu, that mojo he had going early in the
I blame
spring
Mike
and the summer.
for he's probably gotten really self-conscious about his pencil legs that Mike kept bringing up. And so he's probably now thinking about his legs and not blocking the man in front of him. So blame Mike on that one.
It's been bad, man. And it just looks like a completely different player from the Boise State tape. It like he's getting to the second level and like whiffing on blocks. His hips are looking a little stiff. He's a little late to react to guys around the edge, and he's getting stood up and thrown off balance, playing with his pads a little too high. I mean, it just looks like he's trending in the complete opposite direction. It kind of makes me wonder the sources that we had from mini camp saying, yeah, he's doing great. He's running with the ones. He's getting all these reps and he's dominating out there. Is this just a Jekyll and Hyde situation? Do those people need to go get their eyes checked? I don't know, because this is not at all what I was sold throughout the summer with John Ojukwu. And I think with 2 preseason games under his belt and 1 to go, man, the hourglass is running out on this guy, really cementing himself as a member of this roster at this point.
I mean, how do you go for being OT, the main right tackle behind NPF, like the guy getting all the reps with the ones, and now a couple months later, we're like, I don't know if this guy's going to make the team.
Yeah, it's really disheartening. And obviously I've been a big fan of his. I was a fan of his when they signed him as an undrafted free agent out of Boise State, but there comes a moment where you got to do it in the games kind of deal. And he hasn't done it in the game so far. Jerron Christian, Leroy Watson have been pretty tough to watch. And I tweeted this the other day. I caught some flack for it, but I think of the backup tackles, Jalen Duncan has had the best preseason between the 2 games. I thought he had
not good.
I thought he had some good pass pro reps against the 49ers. And then I watched him against the Seahawks, and there were times that like he gets a little out ahead of his momentum there. He's leaning a little bit, and guys take advantage of that, and they drive him back a few yards. But I thought he did a good job to recover and drop his anchor. And I think he's a little more active with his hands. He's a little more active with his hips. I'm seeing him get to the second level and connect on some of the blocks that he was missing last year. And then I'm sitting here watching the Seahawks tape over, and I'm thinking, oh my God, am I about to sit here and say Jalen Duncan is their best backup tackle option right now? I can't believe it that's where we're at now after looking at this group in the summer and thinking, hey, they've got some quality depth here based on what we're hearing from camp and practice. And now it doesn't sound like anybody's translating that from the practice field to live game situations, except for Jalen Duncan and Brian Dooley. So how did we get here? I don't know. But
don't forget Cole Spencer, but he's on the interior.
He's on the interior, yeah. So if anything were to happen to J.C. Latham or Nicholas Petit-Frere, who, by the way, hand up, I've come around on. I liked his tape against the 49ers. I think he's got the job, treated like a starter against the Seahawks. I think it'll be fine. But if anything happens to one of those two guys, I am deeply concerned. They're going to have to end up calling Dennis Daly. Who else are they going to get?
No, Blaine said that today, and we that is now twice that his name has been said in one day. We're in a Beetlejuice situation.
One more time.
Don't do it. Don't do it. He'll show up.
Now you're making me want to do it when you tell me not to do it.
Yeah. Well, we're going to change this or slightly change the subject over here to Mike. Mike, Z-Dean brings up a point, and it goes to a larger discussion here. But he says on YouTube, if one of the tackles go down, do you think Radins would bump outside, then Rupsich at guard? Now, I think that is a good possibility, but I wonder if they like having to switch two different people in that kind of situation. And having two different people, especially with Dylan Radins not taking any snaps other than at guard. So, and obviously that's probably their best situation right now as the roster sits, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot of teams don't like to make the two moves to replace one guy deal, just because it really messes with the chemistry and comfort of a lot of guys at that point. Because not only do you have a new tackle, you have a new guard, you have a center playing next to a new guard now. There's a lot of disruption there when you go down that route. So like, I don't know. I kind of think, I mean, honestly, Radins probably is their third best tackle on the roster right now. But I'd say I think Jerron Christian has been okay. Like he is what he is. I mean, he's been around the NFL for long enough. But you know, the Browns kind of were able to get out of the season last year with him, and he wasn't a disaster for them down the stretch last year as their starting left tackle after Jedrick Wills and like 7 other tackles got hurt for the Browns. I would be okay with him being on the team at least. Jalen Duncan, certainly, like if you just line them all up and look at them, Jalen Duncan looks the best, right? Like he moves the best.
You're all about this, the body.
Physically,
looks like this physicality thing you're obsessed with.
But then it doesn't really come together. And like even today, I think I was reading Tehran's tweets, kind of talking about practice.
I got pulled up.
There was like multiple Jalen Duncan got smoked tweets in there or comments in there, and I'm like, yeah, it's still not really looking great for him. There's just something that does not connect with Jalen Duncan. I have no idea what it is, but to me, we're heading into year 2 here. The odds that the light's suddenly going to click on get lower every day with the whole Duncan thing. I think you probably keep him on the roster because you don't have a whole lot of better options, but it's not good. It's not good tackle depth, which I guess I didn't expect it to be good. I thought maybe
I thought it would be better.
Bodies. I thought maybe they'd thrown enough bodies at it that you would hope someone would emerge, but nobody's really emerged. It's kind of just been, all these guys are kind of what we thought they were.
Mike, do you think Jalen Duncan is better now than he was last summer?
That's a good question. Maybe.
I feel like marginally, like he's getting there. And is his talent strong enough for him to hold long enough for that light bulb to go off? I think that's the question with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Andrew King says it correctly here on YouTube, Duncan on some plays literally just looks like his brain shuts off. And yeah, I agree. That's something that me and Blaine are going to be talking about too, because that's something that Blaine has said and off air when we were just kind of like spitballing some stuff around. And it's like, and I did explain, because I think people forget that it's like the Maryland offensive line coach just kind of like threw them out there. So like he's way behind. But something that Duke Manyweather said, like he's like, it would not surprise me if down the road that this is he's one of the better tackles from this class, or if not the best. I'm thinking, man, that's a really long road to be driving down right now to hope that Jalen Duncan turns into what Duke Manyweather, who I ultimately respect his opinion very, very highly, but that's a long road.
Jalen Duncan, the Geno Smith of left tackles.
Right. Like, is that what we're seeing? Is that in a few years, probably like 5 or 6 years, Jalen Duncan's going to pop up and get an all pro somewhere else, just like 6 years later, 7 years later. And we're just like, what? Where'd that come from?
They wrote me off, but I ain't right back.
Yeah. But like Jalen Duncan, guard, but like how many guards do you really need? Like at some point they have to find a backup tackle. They have to, because their starting guard is their backup tackle.
I think Duncan can play tackle. Honestly, I do. I think he moves so well. Like it's obvious. Like he's so light on his feet for a guy that size. I think he could play tackle. He needs to learn to anchor better. I think he needs to get some technique stuff down with his punches. I mean, he still doesn't look like he knows what he's doing half the time. It's better. I do think it is better. And maybe look, he's only been working with Bill Callahan for a few months. So maybe as he gets more time with him, he can develop those skills, because like the raw ability, like clearly is there. I don't know where the disconnect is. I would love to know what that actually, like what is causing his problems, where he just cannot take what he clearly is physically capable of and translate it into sound technique and repeatable. And I mean, I guess it's a struggle for a lot of guys at this level, but it's so tantalizing with him, because when you see him move, you're like, man, that guy looks like a starting tackle, so I don't know. You kind of got to keep him on the roster, but you don't want to play him week 1 for sure, or week 2 or any other week for that matter this year, probably. But yeah, that's kind of where I land on the tackle.
Stoney, I think we just need to get you out there to prevent us from buying in into the. I think you got to be out there at OTAs next year, because we got sold a bill of goods. We got hoodwinked.
We did. Yeah.
Never trust a man with pencil legs to play tackle for you.
There you go. There he is about the pencil legs again. Just brutally attacking the man's lack of leg days. Shouldn't the Zach Woodfin be on top of that?
One would think.
Shouldn't he be beefing up those legs?
That's what they hired him for. Get out here and beef up these skinny O-line legs.
Yeah, gotta do something. Listen, we've bitched about the edge group. We've bitched about the offensive tackles. It's time to bitch about the wide receivers. And Nick Westbrook-Akine strikes again. He got bumped down the depth chart and got treated like a backup player and played the preseason game while Burke sat at home. And the voodoo has come back to haunt Treylon Burks, who went down with an injury. Looks to his hip and lower back. We don't know the extent of the injury, but he had to go inside. Now, Jim Wyatt says, hey, he would have his day was done anyway. So once again, there is a practice that ends for Treylon Burks in either a cramp or an injury or something like that. And we know the Tennessee Titans want to keep 6 wide receivers, but you may have to keep 8 if you're going to keep NWI, because he is coming for the health of all these wide receivers. He's trying his damnedest. Tyler Boyd, bone bruise on his foot. And then you got Treylon Burks is fighting for his life out there every play because of NWI's curse. And then D-Hop, I mean, trending, he took him out for a couple of weeks. He's coming back. NWI is just inevitable.
Dead.
Kyle Phillips, yeah, hamstring down. I mean, NWI is just coming for everybody, and he has to be stopped. Like, and we're just at that point. The curse, you talk about Rashad Weaver, the curse of NWI has to be stopped. Do we need to get some sage and burn it around his locker or something? Like, Mike, where are you at on, first off, this Traylon Burks injury train? But this obvious curse of NWI, like, why is nobody talking about this curse besides me?
I mean, I think with the Burks thing, I think the comments in the chat from Ocho and Ed there nail it. He does not know how to fall, and that is a real skill, and it is a real problem for him. And
People
most of
laugh,
his injuries
but that is a real skill.
have come back to he does not know how to fall down. He doesn't know how to do that, and you know, even the injury he had with his knee in training camp last year against the Vikings, I think it was in joint practices. It was he was coming down and he could not land correctly and over, you know, hyperextended his knee. I think that's a real problem for him, and I think he's gonna have some nicks and dings here and there until he learns how to do that, or if it's even possible for him to learn how to do that. So I think that's part of it with him, and there's also the factor of, like, I don't know. I always feel like at a certain point, a guy being that big and that fast, they break. Like they just your body, when you're wound that tight at that size, things break. And I just, you know, Julio Jones, we've seen it with, you know, countless other guys. I'm not saying Burks is Julio, but like there's some similarities there, size, speed, all that stuff. So I just think he's always probably going to have some little things here and there, but hopefully he's okay. Like, I mean, it sounds like maybe he's not. This isn't like a major issue for him.
I like the jiu-jitsu suggestion by Z-Dean in the chat. I think
Yeah.
that's probably a good one. Listen, you talk about learning to fall. There was an ice storm down in Columbia when we lived down there, and I was visiting my parents in winter break, and we got out of the truck, and Mom like immediately falls on the ice, and then I'm running to Mom, and I slide on the ice, and I was like, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay. I know how to fall." And there is an art to falling, and you have to know that. If anybody in improv and comedy would tell you that there is an art to falling.
Yeah, I was going to say let's send Traylon Burks to pro wrestling school to learn. You know, those guys go out there. People don't realize it, but you have to learn how to throw your body at the ground 15 times, 3 nights a week, and sustain a career over an extended amount of time. But I think also jujitsu is probably the answer here, because you probably avoid the addiction to painkillers and steroids that route. So
yeah,
it's good.
We got some Bambi falls. Ed Henry says Bambi falls better than Burks, which I called Justin Hunter Bambi because he had a real hard time staying on his feet as well.
Man.
And he was also skinny like a deer. But Bambi falls better than Burks. And then Ed Henry follows that up that goes, then again, it turned out well for Bambi, but NWI wasn't in Bambi. Was he not? Do we know that he is not the reason that Bambi's mom died?
We don't.
We don't know that.
I've never seen.
That is
any
not
journalism
canon, you know, that NWI was not there.
Do you think that NWI taught Mason Kinsey the ways of his witchcraft? And maybe this is all Mason Kinsey's doing, because we're talking about Kyle Phillips, who also went down, who's, you know, the Tennessee Titans staff, Brian Callen, love it. They say it's not his fault. And I get what they're saying. Brian Callen said it's not his fault. And he's been really good when he's available. But that's been the whole thing that we have talked about every year with Kyle Phillips since the beginning of his rookie year. It's like he can't stay healthy. He's great when he's healthy, but he can't stay healthy. And Mason Kinsey played through a broken pinky. Props to him, even though he could have caught a ball that he didn't catch and all this stuff. But what I will say is that while Mason Kinsey's getting open and making plays, and he seems to take on this scheme very well, because I think what I've noticed about the preseason, these last 2 games, is that they're scheming guys open. And I think that's really big. The Oliver Geddon is on hold till 2025. But I'm going to give you a chance, guys, right now. Put the percentage on that Mason Kinsey's making the team, Mike Herndon.
I think it's like 40%. But if if you tell me that Hopkins isn't going to be available week 1, that Burks' thing turns into an injury, like he's not that far away from it being way higher than that. But I think it's like 40% because, I mean, somebody's going to return punts, and I keep talking about this. I think it's going to be Jaquan Jackson, but I don't know. We'll see whether that ends up being his job or not. And yeah, I think Kinsey still has an outside chance, at least, if not a pretty decent chance, given the injury to Phillips, which I think Phillips is toast. And they may keep 7. And at this point, I mean, Kyrus Jackson also hurt. I mean, NWI is getting all of them. Trayshawn Harrison's been out like all of camp. So I think it's there's not a lot of healthy bodies there, and Kinsey, theoretically is one of them. That's still at least practicing, and you can't kill him. He's a cockroach.
Yeah. This is from Wreck-It Rand. I just have to read this name. I'm pretty sure Kyle Phillips was the inspiration for Samuel Jackson's Mr. Glass character in that M. Night Shyamalan Dudong trilogy. And I nailed it. Did not even stutter. Shyamalan Dudong.
Man, you're a professional.
There you go. Andrew King says, get Kinsey and Avery off my team. Look, you got to give credit to Mason Kinsey. He goes out there and fights with everything he's got. I just have a hard time finding a spot for him on this roster with the projected actual health status of everything. I mean, D-Hop's likely sounds like he'll be back by week 1. We don't know what Treylon Burks is, but he's not really a 1-for-1 for Treylon Burks, even though he was, out there as the X, which was really odd to see. Like NWI is the Z. Both odd choices. Maybe it's just like they're trying. And I mean, NWI doesn't really scream Z to me. He screams more possession receiver, kind of like X, but it is what it is. I get a little worried though, because you get down to like 47 players, 48 players, and you're like, you just got to put the best player on the team. And, I think that's linebackers. I think it's probably a 4th running back, a 4th tight end. But there is an outside chance that Mason Kinsey makes the team, especially because, and let's talk about some Malik Willis right now, who, not great. But he can clear waivers. I'm kind of thinking that he's probably shown enough in preseason that he's probably not going to get picked up, and because you have to carry him. That's what people got to remember. If you claim a guy off waivers, you have to carry him on your 53. Now, if you sign him after the fact or whatever, that's a little bit different. Malik Willis can be called up an unlimited number of times from the practice squad under a new rule that was voted on this summer from the practice squad as the emergency quarterback. So he can just stay on the practice squad. He'd be a really good scout team quarterback that gives him a time to still learn and develop under Brian Callahan, maybe possibly for next year, because he has shown improvement. He's just not consistent. Like it feels like consistency and trust are his biggest issues with Malik Willis right now. So I'll ask you, Stoney, we've watched 2 games of Malik Willis. I know that you think that he has improved, but he hasn't improved enough. He's not making the final 53, and he doesn't have to make the final 53. Do you agree?
Yeah, the only disagreement I would have with what you just said is that I still feel like it's the NFL. You have coaches with egos. If he slips through the cracks, doesn't make this team, I think there's a chance that someone would look at him and say, oh, the raw talent, the raw skills, we can fix him. And so I think there's a chance he could get picked up. I also think that he has been a lot better this year than he was last year. I think a lot of the criticisms of Malik have been a little overblown on Twitter this week. I think he has made some pretty decent reads, and that is an area of his game we talked about him improving upon after his last couple of seasons. So I think it's encouraging, and I think that is what's going to show like I said, you get into a situation where a coach has a little bit of hubris. Maybe they need a quarterback. They need to churn some guys. I don't know. I can't think of a team off the top of my head, but I think it's more likely that he gets picked up than him clearing and making the practice squad. But otherwise, I just don't see, with the needs that they have elsewhere, they're going to have to churn offensive tackles. They're going to have to churn linebackers. I think I did my 53 man the other day, and I got to 10 offensive linemen, 5 defensive linemen, 6 linebackers, and those decisions, and 4 tight ends as well. Those decisions impact the numbers. And when you look at keeping Malik Willis, it's little more than a luxury at this point to keep him on the roster. So I don't think he makes it. I think they ride with 2 in Levis and Rudolph, but I think it's a little more, not saying it would happen. I believe it would happen, but I think it's I think there's more of a possibility that somebody picks him up than just assuming he makes it to the practice squad.
Mike, it's I think the discussion isn't Malik Willis versus Mason Rudolph, and it was never a real discussion. We've talked about that on the show. It was a farce. It was ridiculous for us to be lied to our face like that. But at the end of the day, it's really more about Malik Willis versus Hassan Haskins versus David Martin Robinson versus James Williams than it is Malik Willis versus Mason Rudolph, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. He is competing for like the 50th through 53rd spots on the roster right now. And look, I mean, like, it's not super stiff competition, right? I think you can get to probably 49, 50 that you feel pretty good about. And then the rest of them, you're kind of like, I guess I'll throw this guy in there. And I don't think Malik necessarily needs to be on there because, look, they don't need 3 quarterbacks really. Now, I do think if you waive him, I think he's going to Baltimore. I just think he's a perfect fit behind Lamar Jackson for the style of offense they want to run. Their current backup is Josh Johnson. He's going to Baltimore if you cut him, which is fine. I don't care. Like, I think so. Yeah. I think he's going to Baltimore.
I mean, but he would be their 3rd quarterback. So they're carrying 3 quarterbacks in that case.
I think they'd take him as their 2nd, ultimately.
Well, then they're idiots because Josh Johnson is clearly better than Malik Willis. Yeah. Like, Malik Willis is not a top 64 quarterback in the NFL right now.
Josh Johnson is like 1,000,000 years old and has been on 1,000,000 franchises. And this is a team that's played like Snoop Huntley and guys like that, young guys that didn't have any experience, and they've brought them along as backups to Lamar. I think he's going to Baltimore 100% if he gets cut, which is fine. I don't mind losing him to Baltimore.
Will it make it a lot better for you that he goes to Baltimore? Is that why you're wish casting this and putting it out there? Because, you know, you're a noted Malik Willis hater, and then if he goes to your most hated team, this is just icing on the cake.
It'd be easier to root against. He's a nice guy.
Don't you think Derrick Henry's going to tell them? Nah, I wouldn't.
Don't do it. Maybe Derek is gonna be like, dude, this guy fumbles all the time. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's where he's gonna end up, and I really think that's what's gonna happen. I think they're gonna cut him, and I think he's gonna be on Baltimore's waiver claim list. The next day, and he'll be Lamar's backup, which almost feels like his destiny.
Let's just a real quick run through. Cedric Gray still not practicing. Does this feel like that maybe this shoulder injury is a lot worse than what we thought, and that he's going to go on some kind of injury list of some sort to save a roster spot or gain a roster spot and protect him? Because listen, I've seen the Tennessee Titans cut picks before. I mean, they cut Des Fitzpatrick and he was a 4th round pick. Now that's the prior regime, but the NFL does that. And I'm not saying that Cedric Gray has really done anything to get cut, but it seems to me that they are keeping 6 linebackers. And if they're only keeping 5, Otis Reese is in concussion protocol. I wonder if he is going to lose ground and get favor, or he gets cut in favor of the 6th round or the 4th round pick. So, Mike, where do you land on this line? Because they can keep six linebackers. I mean, Stoney's final 53, I think, had six linebackers. My final 53 has six linebackers. They can keep six linebackers. But with the safeties that they have and the role that they're going to play probably in the box, it just seems like you're just building an elite special teams unit at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need that many linebackers. It depends on where they're at with Gray. Obviously we have not seen him at all. Through the 2 preseason games. I don't know if it was a disaster at practice, this summer before he got hurt. If it was, then maybe they do cut him. If it wasn't a disaster and it was just a guy that looked like, he's kind of swimming right now mentally, trying to adjust to an NFL defense and, new setting, new city, all that stuff. If it was just normal struggles for a rookie, they're not cutting him. He's still talented. And I still, am intrigued by him, even though we haven't seen him yet. So I think you probably keep him around because, I mean, at the end of the day, like if it costs you Otis Reese, I don't think we're going to come back in 5 years and be like, man, I can't believe they lost out on all pro Otis Reese, right? Like
this could be Richard Spillane all over again, Mike.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, and again, if you lose out on a Spillane, it's okay. So I just think Campbell, I think, is pretty clearly the number 3. Beyond that, I think James Williams to me has to be on the roster. I wrote about him this week, and I just think his stuff pops every time he's on the field. He pops. He's physically different. He's playing better than I thought he would this early in a transition to a new position. I think he's got to be on the roster. So then it becomes, I think Gray's on the team unless he goes to IR.
You kind of stepped on his corner with a couple of these tweets about James Williams coming up with these creative, colorful descriptors. You called him a goblin. And that's Stoney's area. You stay off that island. That's Stoney's island. Listen, Stoney,
he is a goblin.
Garrett Warlow went to IR. Rest in peace. Flat out play 2024 to 2024. They signed Michael or Mikael Jones, who kind of bounced around and I think played in the UFL or the USFL, one of those as well. And I agree with Zeding because and we'll get to the Anthony Kendall question that Andrew King is wanting to, but Michael Jones it seems strange to sign him to just cut him. Like, do you really need more linebackers at this point on your roster? You have like 20 of them, Stoney.
Well, I mean, it could just be a situation where maybe they want to kick the tires on the guy. They kind of want to bring him in. If this is a situation where one of these guys is hurt for an extended amount of time, it's like you got the spot. Why not use it? Maybe there's not another defensive lineman or another edge rusher out there that you want to bring in. Maybe you've got to get somebody in to just literally have a body on the field to run some of your defense kind of deal. I think it could just be a situation where they want to get a look at the guy. They need somebody for the game against the Saints, and that's about the extent of it to me.
Where are you at on are you a little disappointed by Cedric Gray's career so far? I mean, it's obviously not over, written in stone, but I think we're allowed to be, and I'm sure nobody's more disappointed than Cedric Gray.
Yeah.
But man, I sure am disappointed that we have not gotten some preseason Cedric Gray.
I am disappointed, but only because I set the expectations so high for Cedric Gray myself.
We were all talking green dot Cedric Gray.
Week 1 starter, just throw him in there and put him trial by fire. Just get the reps and work through it and figure it out on the field kind of deal. But I think somewhere along the way, it kind of clicked from what we were hearing at training camp that things just weren't really coming together. They weren't really gelling for Cedric Gray. Now he's hurt. I kind of feel like at this point, they're just going to be patient with him and let him develop and not rush him onto the field at all. So yeah, I'm a little disappointed, but I also look in the mirror and hold myself accountable for that and say, you know what, Stoney, maybe you shouldn't have gone to a Juku mania with Cedric Gray in this case.
Extravaganza.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll work on that. We'll work on that one. So special teams is where a lot of these guys are going to go. I mean, obviously, Rashad Weaver has played special teams with these back end roster guys. I'm about to name. Rashad Weaver plays special teams. We've seen James Williams in on special teams. Chance Campbell, Otis Reese, Anthony Kendall, Hassan Haskins, and Andrew King. You know, he says that, you know, he would rather keep Anthony Kendall over Hassan Haskins. Just let me remind you that Hassan Haskins led the team his rookie year in special teams tackles. So. And he has been described as a demon on special teams. Now, Jabari Small looked better in week 2. Don't think he's making the team, but I do think that Julius Chestnut got run as so much run that he did because I think they wanted to see more out of Julius Chestnut, and he delivered. Your boy delivered, Mike. I'm about to give you some props.
Chestnut's roasting.
I think they're keeping 4 running backs, Mike, and I think Julius Chestnut is going to be the main guy that runs. That seems to be what Brian Callen is enamored with. But I think that Hassan Haskins does provide you special teams value. There's things that people got to remember. He can also return kicks because he did that as well.
Mm-hmm.
He can also did he return punts too, or was he kicks only?
Mm-hmm. I think kicks only.
Well, I mean, that's something that you may need, right? If Tajay Spears goes down, and he's probably your main 1A kick returner because they'll use 2 back there. I do think that Hassan Haskins, that's a place that he could probably fit in, and that matters, right? You need to be able to do multiple things, and if he can do all phases of special teams, not only just in coverage but returns, seems like he's got a place. I think it's pretty safe. I think they're keeping 4. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I continue to lean more and more towards them keeping 4 backs, just simply because I think both of those guys, Chestnut and Haskins, are among the 53 best players on this roster. I think Chestnut is a good back. I think if you had to play him in a game, I'm not worried at all about Julius Chestnut going into a game. You know, if one of Pollard or Spears went down, I'm not worried about giving him 10, 15 snaps, 10, 15 touches, whatever that guy's share is in relief duty. Would not concern me one bit. Haskins is a good special teamer. He's proven that. And I also think when we talk about special teams, we have to keep in mind too that it's not just, you know, this guy plays on special teams. They're all special teamers. They have certain roles that they fall into. And Haskins' role is very different than what Anthony Kendall's role is on special teams. Kendall's going to be a gunner. He's going to play on the outside on kickoff coverage. He's going to play on the outside on return units, things like that. He's not going to be playing in the middle, which is where Haskins is. Haskins, like the bigger body guys, the tight ends, your running backs, your linebackers, those guys are going to play in the, you know, punt protection, you know, the blockers in punt team.
Can I pause right here real quick?
Yeah.
I think we are getting red pilled here. Am I using that right, Stoney?
I think so.
Being duped. Yeah. Anthony Kendall hasn't played a snap in this entire preseason.
He has. I think he's still on the roster, but he's hurt.
Yeah. So why are we even talking about?
He's not. He's.
I got duped. I got hoodwinked again.
It'd be kind of shocking if he made the team, but I think the point still stands that like these guys all fall into different buckets from a special team standpoint. So like just because you're saying, oh well, they're keeping 4 linebackers for special teams or whatever, you know, means that they don't need to keep 4 corners. Well, the corners and the linebackers do different jobs on special teams. So I think that's something we have to keep in view on some of this stuff. But I do lean towards, 4 running backs, Haskins and Chestnut in there. And yeah, Haskins will be purely a special teams contributor, but that's fine. You have a spot for that.
Stoney, I want to go to corners now. Gabe Jeudy-Lally seems, in my opinion, to be the guy that's probably got the best hold on the cornerback 5 position.
I would agree.
You know, Trey Avery, it's just like, fuck it. Trey Avery's down there somewhere. Just launch the ball.
Opposing quarterbacks are saying
Caleb Farley can't stay healthy. Of course, Caleb Farley is back at practice a little bit ahead of schedule, but I don't think he got a lot of work. I think he was just kind of like there, sort of out in practice. Maybe Caleb Farley, we see Caleb Farley in a game, and maybe he changes our mind about, but you can't, then maybe you're keeping 6 because you can't really trust Caleb Farley.
You can't.
So,
Farley.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this I don't know what this staff sees. They can't keep him as like your main guy, but if you maybe he's your sixth guy for whatever reason. I don't know what they see out there every day. But it seems like it's Gabe Judy-Lally. Is this a position they probably are going to churn at, on the back and free and when the cuts come down? Because this seem I like Gabe Judy-Lally, and he's a really good fit for the man part of the scheme. But if you're going to throw him in there, you can only play man. It's kind of like Cody Hollister. When Cody Hollister was in on offense, you can only run the ball. So like it seems like Gabe Judy-Lally, if you're going to put him in there, you can only play man. And maybe that's what they want to do, but he seems very limited right now. But he's better than Trey Avery, right?
Man, isn't this kind of fascinating to look at? Because I think you can draw a parallel between what's happening with the corners and what's happening with the offensive line right now. Just a couple of months ago, we were talking about how deep this unit was and how the volume they had, the sheer numbers that they had at each of those positions. And now things are shaking down on the field, and it's looking like, we might need to get some fresh bodies into this rotation. Trey Avery is another guy that I feel like we got a juku'd on, because all spring and summer people were talking about how good Trey Avery looked in camp, and then the team would post these highlights of Will Levis throwing these bombs, and every time there's number 23 on the receiving end of that ass beating. And in these two preseason games, he hasn't looked good. Now, I think, listen, I'm a big Sam Howell guy. I think people need to give him a little more credit for throwing that bucket on that touchdown play. But if you watch it back, the receiver just runs right by Trey Avery, and there is like little, friction between the two.
Aesop Winston Jr., by the way.
The guy, I think he wrote some fables once, if I'm not mistaken. The guy just runs right by him, and there's no that's the disconnect that I see based off of what we've heard Denard Wilson wants this defense to be. It's you got to be physical, you got to punch a guy, you got to jam a guy, you got to get in his grill. And Trey Avery didn't do that at all, and the guy just ran right by him, and Sam Howell throws a bucket because that's what Sam Howell can do, Seahawks quarterback of the future. And it's one of those situations where that just it can't really happen at that level of competition. And the fact that it is happening at that level of competition for Trey Avery repeatedly is not a good sign. So I do think he's out of the race. I do think Gabe Judy-Lally has been a nice player all summer. He's been a bit of a dark horse to make this roster for some time. I liked him when they signed him, dug into his tape a little bit, and kind of felt like I honestly felt like, holding myself accountable. I'm like, wow, I don't know that he's quick and twitchy enough to play man coverage, but we've seen him excel at man coverage this summer. So I think that's an encouraging thing. I see what you're talking about, Zach, with some of the instances of him in zone where he looks a little lost, so to speak, but I think it's not a consistent thing. I did see reps where it was zone, and I felt like he was pretty patient, disciplined, and getting to where he's supposed to be, and picking up guys running through and giving them a little elbow in the ribs or shove on the shoulders, playing the style that Denard Wilson wants him to play. And that's ultimately what I think is his ticket to making this roster and solidifying his role as the fifth cornerback on this team. But now I think they're going to be in the market for a sixth guy. Like, they've got to start turning some bodies in there.
Yeah, I like what we've heard about Gabe Judy-Lally. He's he's physical, he battles, and look, there's just nobody on here that I feel like that really challenges him in any way. Like with the edge group, it's like you got all these guys and they're all kind of bad and they're all battling each other to be the least bad edge four. Here, it's like it's pretty clear that he is the best out of the other options behind him. And then it's like the first four guys, Gabe Judy-Lally, and then a couple tiers down is everybody else. And I just think that that's how that's going to roll. And then you still got Elijah Molden in the safety room and what they're going to do with all those guys and how they're going to deploy them. At this point in time, it just seems like Gabe Judy-Lally is, or some people like to call him Gabe Aneurysm Lilly, is going to make this team
all-time autocorrect. Poor Terry.
Terry McCormick calling him not only just getting the middle name wrong, Judy, but also getting the second name wrong. Going from Gabe Aneurysm Lilly is an all-timer. And how does it even autocorrect Judy and an aneurysm? Like, how many extra letters were you putting in Judy that it got to aneurysm?
No, I don't know. Oh, man.
It went from autocorrect to a diagnosis.
Yeah. Siri said, "I'm sorry, Terry. I think you have an aneurysm."
Yes.
Trying to get this.
Oh,
tweet
man.
out there. That's the best thing that's ever came from training camp is Gabe Aneurysm Lilly.
That's all I'm calling him.
Unbelievable. It is unbelievable. Just Gal for short. Man. Okay, so we talked to quarterbacks. I think we talked. This is maybe the quickest we've actually ever talked about an entire episode. This is an entire episode. I will say this real quick. Give me one big thing that you're looking for from this game Sunday, whether that's a player or how the offense runs or what the defense does. Give me one big thing, Mike, that you're looking for in the game against Saints.
I think for me, it's going to be Nicholas Petit-Frere. I want to see, can he duplicate what he did against the 49ers and show that he can be counted on and trusted at that right tackle spot. Obviously, I think it's going to be his job. As we talked about earlier in the show, there's not a lot of competition there pushing him at this point, but I want to see what he looks like and kind of, I think, because that's going to be a key spot all year. Whether how well he plays could go a long way into determining how successful this offense can be. Because you just can't have disasters at tackle, as we found out the last couple years. So I'll be keeping a close eye on NPF over there at right tackle.
Stoney, what's your one big thing?
One big thing. I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to say churn. I want to see at offensive tackle, at cornerback, and at linebacker how they deploy these guys, how they churn, how maybe if they're using guys in different roles. Like these are areas where I think the depth needs to improve. And I kind of want to see if they use this game as a chance to maybe tweak a little bit and tinker around with those three positions to put different guys out there. And Isaiah Iton, we didn't talk about him tonight, but I'm gonna be watching.
Oh man, I meant to talk about him. Do a little Isaiah I-10 talk real quick, Stoney, because he deserves some props.
Man, I loved his game on Saturday. I thought he played with great explosiveness. That's kind of his thing. Like his arms are like tree trunks. They say that about dude's legs, but like his arms are so powerful. And I've got a rep up on my Twitter at Stoney Keeley where he just walks down Christian Haynes. Who's
Christian a fierce, strong offensive lineman.
Yeah, he's a wrestler in his own right, and Isaiah Iton just gets the hands inside, extends the drive, the foot power. Like there is some explosiveness, some juice in this guy's game. He walks Christian Haynes down, and then Sam Howell tries to run up the middle, and Iton just swallows him whole for a sack on 3rd and 4 to force the Seahawks. Game situational football we're talking about here, to force the Seahawks to a field goal that ends up probably helping the Titans to win that game. I thought it was a monstrous game for Iton, and I think this is an area where Marlon Davidson's now out of the equation. I think you have 4 guys that are pretty set in stone there between Simmons, Sweat, Joseph Day, and Coburn. And now I think you've got an interesting battle if they want to add some depth to defensive line. Can this guy build upon that performance and really make a name for himself and make a case to make this roster?
That should have been your one big thing. Because, I mean, you talked more about that than your actual one big thing.
I don't even have a one big thing now. So, yeah,
there you
go.
So my one big thing is I'm just watching the linebackers because obviously the starters are going to play probably some on defense. So if Jack Gibbons continues to look lost and overwhelmed like he did in preseason week 1 and Chance Campbell looks fantastic, I am just going to be pushing the agenda. Chance Campbell needs to start over Jack Gibbons. And if there's a lot, I mean, at that point, you just can't deny it that he is a better fit and looks better out there week in, week out, makes plays in practice. So I'm going to be looking at the linebackers, including James Williams, who's a goblin. And then I'm going to be looking at also the linebackers on the outside, because if Jalen Harrell continues to build on what he did last week, because it was kind of a lackluster week 1, but he's been having good practices and it's been very consistent. But it was an outstanding week 2 preseason. So if he puts in another outstanding week, because he's going to get a lot of reps, because I would assume while the starters are playing, I'm not sure if Harold Landry will play. Well, they said that Harold Landry's not playing in the entire season, so he's going to get the reps anyway. So Jalen Harrell, Chance Campbell, Jack Gibbons, that core right there is my one big thing, is what I'm looking at. That will do it for us, football and other F words, here on 104.5 The Zone. We were on the Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook channel. For all those that have been in the chat, you guys were awesome. We had 1,660. Oh, well, that just jumped. 1,728 of you have stayed with us through 1 hour at 10 o'clock at night. So 10:12 p.m. So we really appreciate it. I'll be on Blaine and Zach 1 through 3 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then also I'll be on the Titans Talkback post game, which is going to be so much fun.
I can't wait for that.
I can't wait, because I get to take calls, and that starts in the regular season, so I get to take calls, get to hear all that kind of stuff. So that'll be fun. But we'll be here. I got to figure out if the soccer shows every week, so we may be doing 9 p.m. every Wednesday, but we'll be going live every Wednesday still, right here, 104.5 The Zone. Make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and like the show. Push that little like button. Give us some likes. Give us some love here. For Mike, you follow him on Twitter at Mike Herndon NFL. For Stoney, you can follow him on Twitter at Stoney Keeley. I'm Zach Lyons. This has been Football and Other F Words, and you have just been effed.